Hello there, I'm Steven Bushong, Associate Editor at Solar Power World magazine. Welcome to Solar Speaks Live, powered by Unirac. I'm here today with Jeff Spies. Jeff is a CalSEIA board member. He's Secretary of NABCEP, and he's Senior Director of Policy at QuickMount PV. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today.
Good to be here, Steven.
We're going to talk about a variety of issues facing California when it comes to the solar industry. So just to get started, let's get right into it. If I'm a solar installer in California, what issues do I need to be aware of today?
Well, there's always a lot of different areas that one could focus on, but there are two major areas that I think that it will affect solar installers, and many solar installers aren't yet aware of the significance of these issues. The thing that concerns me most is the expiration of net metering as we know it within the next 6 to 12 months. At which point net metering 2.0, as they refer to it, will take over. We don't quite know what that means yet, but what it likely will mean is you will no longer get full retail credit for a kilowatt hour that's fed back onto the grid. This is going to be a problem because if you are getting the avoided cost of value of that kilowatt hour, which is maybe half to a third what the retail rate is, it will dramatically reduce the investment opportunity in solar for a residential or commercial system.
I read that this could actually propel the storage industry a little bit, the reduction in net metering.
In time, potentially. Unfortunately, for the moment, battery, the cost of a kilowatt hour from battery when you look at its life is still considerably higher than what the grid charges for electricity. So I'm anticipating it's probably 3 to 5 years, maybe longer, before the cost of batteries comes down to the point where that would be cost viable.
What could change the path of the net metering in the next 6 to 12 months? Is there a chance that they could keep it at full retail rate?
I suppose there is that chance, and in fact CalSEIA is working aggressively to interact with the CPUC to have them appreciate the significance of net metering to residential and commercial customers. There are a number of CPUC open meetings over the course of the next 6 months that CalSEIA will be coordinating speakers to go and communicate to the CPUC the gravity of the situation. I will, in fact, next Thursday be speaking at the CPUC to communicate what happened in my home area in Phoenix, where our utility discontinued traditional net metering, and we've seen a 99% reduction in installations since that new rate plan for solar customers was implemented.
This could be a serious disruption for the industry. So
potentially so, but I do believe that there's hope that the CPUC will appreciate the gravity of the situation and will implement changes that won't be disastrous.
Okay. Well, also speaking of disaster, California has a bit of a drought going on right now. So I was wondering how solar was helping with the consequences of that drought, or not.
Well, it's well known that typically PV uses little to no water. Certainly you can wash the modules. I live in the Phoenix area and I don't wash my modules, and actually I did a test last May where I washed my modules for probably the first time in over 6 months, and the difference in production was negligible, not noticeable.
Right.
So in a typical PV system, most homeowners will never touch their modules, will never wash them. So when that happens, of course, you've got electrical power generation with virtually no water usage.
Okay, and let's touch on storage one more time for the California market. What kind of impact could it have in California, especially in the commercial realm?
And that's likely where it will have its impact in the next several years, primarily for commercial customers that are attempting to shave the peak for a demand charge rate plan. And what that will mean is during those times of the day when their consumption starts to grow, they will have a software system that will watch their energy usage and will deliberately divert that power to the battery system, so you're keeping your kilowatt demand from the grid in check and not driving up your demand charge too high. So the battery systems will have the major impact initially in the commercial realm, where peak load shaving will be the focus.
And you say 2, 3, 4 years, what are we waiting on? What kind of technology?
The software.
The software.
The software that has the intelligence to know when to draw power from the battery instead of drawing it from the grid. That software doesn't really exist. There are, I shouldn't say in the commercial realm, that software does exist and is being refined, but like all software, there is that period of refinement or debugging that occurs, and that's essentially where we're at in the commercial market. Residential, the software by and large doesn't exist today to do that.
Okay, moving on to the ITC. We all know that that could be reduced in 2016, at the end of 2016. What do you think the impact of that potential reduction would be in California?
The expectation is that the leasing companies will be impacted probably most significantly because
leasing for residential?
For residential, yes. So in the residential realm, leasing companies, their cost proposition is saving the consumer 5 to 10% off of their current electric bills. When the ITC changes in 2017, the commercial investment tax credit drops from the current 30% down to 10%. That's a lot of money to lose right out the gate. And as a result, many leasing companies may find it cost or just the financial prospects don't look very attractive if that ITC does drop to 10%. Residentially, it drops from 30% to 0. Obviously, that will push the payback time out several years. What the implications may be are not yet fully known, but I'm a firm believer that we need to preserve the investment tax credit for the health of the solar market.
How can contractors help preserve the ITC?
Join CalSEIA, please, because this is the one organization in California that's most visible and active in helping preserve the investment tax credit and net metering as we know it. And these are two issues that are significant to installers in this state, whether they're commercial or residential.
Some people say component cost is coming down enough that the ITC isn't a critical. What would you say to them?
The some people that say that are very few, and in my opinion have their own agenda.
Oh, okay. All right, well, we need the ITC.
I believe we do.
So we know that solar is a state-by-state industry with the various municipalities and utilities making big impacts. But in California, it can be more city by city. What can you say about that and how it impacts the California solar market?
Generally, when we start to talk about the rules of the game changing city by city, it relates to codes, standards, and interpretation of those codes and standards. So probably the other most significant issue beyond net metering and ITC that installers in California will be paying attention to is streamlined permitting through Assembly Bill 2188. That will become live later this year. It requires that all jurisdictions in the state of California adopt an ordinance establishing a streamlined permitting process. This is the first time, incidentally, that permitting requirements have been legislated at the state level. So this is a new issue for building departments also. And what this will mandate essentially is that jurisdictions on their website have a expedited permit application process with checklists that are very easy to validate whether the system qualifies and what the electrical attributes, the structural attributes of that system are, to make certain that they will stay within the box, so to speak, is the terminology that's being used, and make certain that that system complies with the requirements for expedited permitting. If it all goes according to plan, most permits will be either able to be granted over the counter or within 24 hours, and there will be also a single inspection. Now, this is a big issue for many building departments. Often they have the desire to do 2 or 3 inspections. By law, they will have to comply with a single inspection per AB 2188.
No more than one.
No more, a single inspection is all that will be allowed by AB 2188.
At what point after the installation's in?
From day one, you only get one inspection. Now there is a provision that if there's not an agreement between the fire authority and the local jurisdiction to do single inspection, there could be a separate fire inspection. But for those jurisdictions where fire is being inspected by the building official, that will all be done in a single inspection, and that addresses waterproofing, electrical code compliance, structural issues, all has to be done in one inspection.
Could this bill lead to a reduction in soft costs, permitting costs?
That is indeed the objective, and I am sure it will lead to a reduction. It's difficult at this stage to project the significance of that reduction, but I can say that the installers that have already focused on trying to understand AB 2188, they're very enthused about the prospect for making their business easier. The beauty is you no longer have to schedule 2 days to wait for a building official to do their inspections. You can do it all in a single inspection on one day.
Great.
And that's huge.
So as I mentioned before, you're a Senior Director of Policy for Quick Mount PV, the mounting manufacturer. Any news out of Quick Mount PV that we should know about?
Well, we do have some new products. Most significantly, we have our Railfree racking system, which we debuted the end of last year, but this is our first time exhibiting it at Intersolar, and it promises to save somewhere between 5 to 10 cents a watt for those installers that would be good candidates for using a Railfree racking system. The premise is that it installs faster and fewer penetrations overall. It currently is appropriate only for asphalt shingle roofs. So if you have a lot of tile roofs in your area, it may not be as compelling a solution, but for those people in areas where asphalt shingles dominate, it would be something worth investigating.
There was a bit of discussion the other day. There's a panel, right? A rail versus railless panel. How did that go?
It was certainly interesting. They had 3 rail-free racking manufacturers, actually 4. Unirac was debuting their rail-free, well, they aren't debuting it, but they did discuss it briefly during that panel. And like any technology, there's pros and cons to both ways of doing it. And those pros and cons were certainly discussed. I don't know that there was necessarily consensus yet. We're still early in the rail-free days, so there's a lot of learning that will be taking place here in the coming weeks and months. But the other new product that Quick Mount has that would be worth mentioning that has significance is a mounting bracket for module level electronics. So solar edge maximizers, for example, if you don't have a rail, there's no place easily available to mount that optimizer to, and we've developed a mounting bracket that will mount to any module frame, and it is listed to UL 2703 for bonding and grounding. So the good news now is we have more versatile devices available to accommodate some of the newer technologies that are coming to the market.
Great. Well, Jeff Spies, thank you so much for joining us today for Solar Speaks Live. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely, Steven. It's great to be here. Thank you for your time.
Good luck with the rest of the show.
Absolutely.